That's a lot to follow. Not sure if I'm going to be able to do that, but thank you very much, Uli. Appreciate it. This is Ensign Kirsch, and I have the side. I was in Panama City Beach, Florida, 22 years old, and training to get my U.S. Navy diving officer qualification. I was a New Yorker via California on the Florida Panhandle. You can only imagine. Still, I remember the first time I said those words and feeling both nervous, proud, and wondering if this was also the last time I would lead this kind of mission. These are the words one says when taking over a U.S. Navy dive operation. And luckily for me that day, the mission was successful. Nobody got hurt. And frankly, it was a pretty simple training mission at the side of a pier. But nonetheless, my classmates and friends from 9635 BDO were counting on me not to make a mistake so that nobody ended up in a recompression chamber from a 30-foot dive for the next 12 hours. You can imagine how many beers that would have cost me. I chose the path of military service because I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself, give back. And for me, I felt that if I could do that kind of job with lives on the line, like a Navy dive operation, I could do just about anything else in my life. And while not disruptive in nature, it was in support of a mission. And being mission-driven was my emerging path in life. My next mission was entrepreneurial, a startup. Well, a first one, and it failed, which some of you in this room might have familiarity with as well. It was Internet 1.0 in April of 2000. We were trying to help consumers get better financial advice. It was a good cause to democratize a service typically available only via word of mouth, and via friends and family ties. But like many great ideas, our timing was wrong. We had raised our seed funding just before the dot-com bubble burst, and after that happened, it was really tough sledding for all the internet businesses. In something that brought a smile to my face, in 2012, I actually got a call from some really eager MBA students. They happened to be from Stanford GSB as opposed to Sloanies, but they were desperately trying to get the IP from a company called InvestorTree.com, that same company that had failed several years earlier. And while I didn't have the IP, I pointed them to the co-founder who did and wished them luck. And I'm not sure anything came of it, but it did hearten me to think that a good idea is a good idea, and maybe if the timing was better, it could actually work. So I decided to get some more perspective and do that here at Sloan. And when I was accepted, and frankly, I don't know if he's in the room, but clearly Rod or someone in his office made a mistake. But I was also accepted at Tufts at the Fletcher School, and I considered a dual degree to build upon some of the military foundation that I had in my life. But I always had a market itch, and Sloan really drew me in very holistically. I had applied here with the thesis that I wanted to work at the intersection of new technologies and innovative public policies, and so I really decided to focus my time here. And as happens at Sloan, probably to somebody almost every week, there was a guest lecture that I sat in a much less nice building across the street, where the speaker told us about the energy deregulation in the 1990s, which totally remade the energy space here in the US. Did anyone else sit in that lecture? Some of my classmates probably did. Maybe you don't remember it. Well, for me, the message was clear, and the message was resounding. And that was this, that regulatory change should not be something to shy away from, as it could not only destroy, but it actually could reshape and remake markets. And although at the time it surprised me how much this resonated with me, looking back, I can see the connection from supporting our national security interests in the Navy to bringing the same sense of mission to the world of technology startups and working through these market shifts. And in many ways, that moment, that lecture, embodies what Sloan did for me. It fused my passion for the mission and the desire to disrupt and affect positive change in technology, especially in businesses that had policy implications. Now, much has changed in my life personally since Sloan. A lot of my classmates are laughing because I've got these now, which I didn't have 15 years ago. I also got married to a wonderful woman who knew some of my Sloan classmates. I have 3 kids. And that mission in my life has actually kept me quite busy. But on the business side, my next 3 ventures all embrace not only a mission, but they were all involved in some very important regulatory changes. The first company was called Visage Technologies, which was a local Boston area company using facial recognition software. And it was focused on dealing with the Real ID Act and some of the outcome of 9/11. And that brought a lot of opportunities for businesses like that. The second company was a company called O-Power, which was a clean tech company and one of the most well-recognized. And we were focused on making an impact on greenhouse gas emissions, especially taking advantage of all the state regulation around energy efficiency that occurred here in the US between 2008 and 2016. I'm happy to say that I do come back almost every year and help teach the O-Power case here at Sloan in Jason Jay's class. I don't know if Jason's in the room, but that keeps me coming back to Sloan and something that I'm very excited about. Well, we either grew these businesses, sold them, took them public. In the case of O-Power, we actually did both. And I will digress and say ringing the bell on that stock exchange was a really special moment for me. And my current venture, Upskill, is working to address some of the industrial digital workforce transformation associated with upskilling the blue-collar workforce in our country around manufacturing, logistics, and service-related jobs. This is a hugely important issue. And whether we can address it or not, I'm not sure. It's going to play out over the next couple of years, but we've got a number of investors betting on us, including Boeing, GE, Accenture, and others. So where do we go from here, especially as everyone reads the news in a very uncertain political environment where it seems like the regulatory winds are changing very quickly and we don't really know which way the wind is blowing? I'd argue for those that are focusing in technology and a handful of other pretty big industries that we're going to see very robust changes in regulation and that now is actually a really, really important time. The current administration's attempt to dismantle much of clean tech and some of the other policy work from the last 15 years in the name of less government oversight has resulted in many hotly debated issues around privacy, online content, energy, and healthcare. And we will likely see several new regulatory frameworks and structures put in place in the very near future. And they will create and destroy several markets and companies as we know them today. The best companies, they'll adjust and capitalize. Those who can't, they won't be here anymore. Smart startups, they'll figure out ways to create value through the chaos. And for those of us interested in creating new businesses and new business models, this is not something to ignore, but rather take advantage of, should these areas align with our mission focus areas. I'd argue that the best time to get traction as a startup and disrupt is actually during this time of broader disruption. The current political uncertainty and the resulting regulatory changes will provide that opportunity for the next several years. I'm personally already looking out 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, keenly interested in a couple of these areas and pondering how best to engage to fulfill my never-ending need for the most meaningful mission. And who knows, maybe I'll have the chance to work with some of the folks in this room on these missions together. Well, I hope I've paid it back. Maybe I've had a similar impact on someone in the room that I had on me back in 2002 when I sat in one of your seats listening to a different guest lecturer on these issues. Thank you.